Chris Dent completed his 12th first-class century as Gloucestershire battled to avoid defeat at Bristol before putting Durham's batsmen under pressure in the final session. A superb 97 from skipper Paul Collingwood gave Durham a first innings lead of 116 at Bristol, but Gloucestershire responded impressively on day 3 to wipe out the deficit and move 59 runs ahead with 7 wickets remaining, the game delicately poised going into day 4. With rain forecast for later in the day, Durham needed early wickets to boost their chances of forcing a victory, but they were frustrated by the overnight pair of Chris Dent and George Hankins. They'd taken Gloucestershire's second innings total past 200 when Hankins drove Cars to mid-wicket for 20. But Dent moved on smoothly, following his first innings 50 with 3 figures this time. With Mustard lending solid support, the 12th century of Dent's first-class career arrived just before lunch, and the home side's lead had grown to 136 with 6 wickets remaining. A draw looked increasingly on the cards. But the complexion of the game changed quickly after lunch. First, a tasty dismissal, Mustard trapped by Onions for 15. Then the crucial wicket of Dent snapped up by Collingwood off Rushworth without adding to his lunchtime score of 101. With that, the collapse was on. Richardson, who dropped Dent earlier, made amends with a sharp catch to dismiss Miles for a pair. And almost immediately Taylor was LBW to Rushworth for 2, the only runs Gloucestershire had scored while losing 4 wickets in 16 balls. Norwell hung around with Payne for a while before he was caught behind off Cars, but the last wicket pair really frustrated Durham, adding 45 either side of a stoppage for bad light before Liddell was bowled by Onions, who finished with 4 for 68. Durham's task now was to score 205 in 31 overs to win. A tall order that soon looked more unlikely when Stephen Cook was caught in front by Payne without a run on the board. And just a few overs later, Durham were forced to revise their plans and enter survival mode. Graham Clark was caught on the boundary off Norwell. And then Gloucestershire's third big appeal for LBW against Collingwood was upheld, and the visitors were 15 for 3. Jennings and Richardson restored some order, but when Van Buren had Richardson caught at mid-off for 26, the home side needed 6 more wickets in 16 overs to force a highly unlikely victory. Jennings and Steele set about sparing Durham's blushes, and when they'd reached 85 for 4, home captain Phil Mustard called time on proceedings. A draw might have been no surprise on day 4, but Gloucestershire will be the happier side. Chris Dent scored the game's only century as their batsmen responded well to Durham's pressure, thanks to that last wicket stand by Payne and Liddell. They sit in mid-table after a win, draw and defeat so far. Whilst 1 draw and 1 defeat is not the start to life in Division 2 that Durham had in mind. They're still bottom, and a fair chunk of that 48-point deduction still has to be wiped off.